Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition Show, my 2022-23 MLB Offseason Predictions Show. I have one prediction per team, and then I'm going to do miscellaneous stuff at the end that did not make any of my team predictions. All right, we are going to start with the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is a team that I think wants to make a splash. They haven't made a splash in a while. They tend to make one every couple of years. There is a position that I look at on the roster that is a weak link, and that is at shortstop. I think they want to make a splash at that position. There are so many good shortstops available, and the one I think they will land is former Astros shortstop and Twins shortstop Carlos Correa. I think that it's going to be like a crazy money deal, like an 8-year $250 or something like that. It's going to be a wild contract for Correa, and I think that Correa cannot pass on a desperate team in a division that I think has a chance to be loaded in 2023. Depending on what some of the other teams do. So I think that's a big splash for that front office. I think he's overdue to make one. The Atlanta Braves. They have a lot of things that they have to do this offseason. Something that they have been doing over the last several months is giving their homegrown talent big money extensions. I'm going to predict that they keep yet another homegrown talent, and that is Dansby Swanson. I think they re-sign him to a similar kind of contract as I projected for Correa, maybe a little bit more, because if I'm not mistaken, he's younger. So I could see Dansby Swanson getting like 9 for $280 or something crazy like that. I think the contracts are going to be absolutely nuts this year because teams have more money now that COVID is removed and whatnot, so I think you're going to see some big contracts this year. The Baltimore Orioles were one of the more surprising teams in Major League Baseball last season, and I think that they want to build on that. And a hole on their roster is in left field. There are several veteran left field free agents that are on the board. I'm excited for what this Orioles team could potentially do down the road. I know they have some depth, so or if they would make a signing, going to create some depth on the roster, and I could see them upgrading left field, and a player that I think is a good match for that ballpark is Andrew Benintendi. So I'm going to say he goes to Baltimore. I could see it being on like a 4-year, $76 million deal, like something not that terrible for Andrew Benintendi. And Austin Hayes could be a DH. Or Kyle Stowers, who I'm not the biggest Kyle Stowers fan, but I could see like Austin Hayes going to right field. I could see Santander being a DH, or even Benintendi could end up a DH down the road as well. And I think that's a good ballpark for Benintendi as well from a defensive standpoint. The Boston Red Sox are under some pressure this offseason to make themselves better because right now they're the worst team in the AL East on paper. The worst. They finished in last, and they're worse than the Orioles. If the Yankees don't re-sign Judge, you could argue they would probably, they could potentially jump them. But right now they're 5 out of 5, and the best player on that team is Rafael Devers, and he needs to be extended. And I think they're gonna do it. They're gonna do whatever it takes. I think it's going to be like a crazy 10-year, $325 million deal, something insane like that. The Chicago Cubs, are a team that I think is a huge unknown in the offseason. They could continue to blow it up and rebuild, or they can go the other way and use prospects that they got in trades the last several years and go get a star like Shohei Ohtani or somebody of that nature. Or they're like a dark horse to sign Aaron Judge or one of the shortstops. But I think they need pitching. And some of their young pitching actually performed a little bit. But Kyle Hendricks, I think, is a free agent. I don't even see his name on the list for their rotation, which is crazy. And is he on the injured list? Like, what happened to Kyle Hendricks? Like, he's not even listed in their rotation. The rotation right now is listed Marcus Stroman, Javier Assad, and Adrian Sampson. And I do think they like some of their young guys, but I could totally see them going out and signing a hot commodity, potentially, if he gets posted, and then that is Kodai Senga, who is a pitcher that's coming over from overseas. And he's coming over from Japan, and I could totally see the Cubs signing him. And I think that would be a great, like, young building block for them. And what happened to Kyle Hendricks from the Cubs? As of now, still with the Cubs, but I don't know why he's not on their roster. That is so weird. And he's not a free agent either. The Chicago White Sox, they're a team that badly underachieved a year ago. There are some players that are slated to be free agents and they need to be replaced. Their starting pitching did not live up to expectations last year. And I think they're going to sign somebody that has pitched well in moments over the past several years. And I think would be a good fit with the White Sox, and that is Nathan Eovaldi. He can come in and be a middle rotation guy. I could see him getting like a 4 for $78 type of contract. All right, the Cincinnati Reds, they're a mess. They're among one of the worst 3 teams in the league. I think they're going to trade reliever Jeff Hoffman to the Boston Red Sox for lefty Chris Murphy and righty Luis Perales. Hoffman had a good year for them, but I just think that the Reds are a team that is building for the future and accumulating assets, and Boston wants to improve what was among one of the worst bullpens in the league last year. The Cleveland Guardians, I think, are going to make a big splash. They could have beat the Yankees in the playoffs if they had one more legit bat. I think they're going to go out and get a certain legit bat that's been in trade rumors for a while now. And that is Pittsburgh Pirates outfielder Brian Reynolds. I think he goes to the Guardians for righty Tanner Bibay, outfielder Chase DeLauters, second base outfielder Jake Fox, and lefty Doug Nakazi. I would love this pickup for Cleveland. Brian Reynolds is an upgrade over Miles Straw, who to me is a 4th outfielder at best. And then he would go right in there with Stephen Kwan and Oscar Gonzalez and Jose Ramirez, and that makes that offense that much better. The Colorado Rockies, they're just stuck in mediocrity. They're like, to me, they're a little bit of a wild card too. I think they're a wild card in that division in terms of what they can do this offseason. We talked about the Cubs. I think the Rockies are another one. I think they're going to trade Herman Marquez to the Philadelphia Phillies for infielder Bryson Stott, catcher Ricardo Perez, and righty Enrique Segura. Stott, I can see them trading him. He was benched in the World Series. And I don't know. Usually that's not a good sign if you're benched in a big game like that. You see it around sports where a young player gets benched in a big game and it doesn't really sit well and the player could request a trade. And also Philadelphia can use more depth in their rotation and upgrade that Noah Syndergaard spot. I think German Marquez would be an above-average number 4 starter for a team that is now going to have big expectations because they made the World Series. The Detroit Tigers had big expectations last year and failed miserably to live up to them. I think they need some starting pitching help, especially like another veteran that can help them. I know they signed Erod last offseason, but the depth behind him has some nice names on it, like Casey Mize and such, but a bunch of them are injured. So I could see them signing another veteran. And someone I think would be a wonderful fit in Detroit would be Carlos Rodon. So I'm going to say Carlos Rodon to Detroit. I could see him getting a similar contract as like Kevin Gossman and Robbie Ray. Like a 5 or 6 year deal, like 150. 5 for 150 would be wild. I could see like 5 for 135 or something like that. But I think he's going to get handsomely paid. The Houston Astros, your new World Series champs, I think want to go for a repeat. And Justin Verlander has been a big part of this run that this franchise has been on over the last half decade, and I think that they would like to re-sign him. So I think Justin Verlander back to the Astros. He's going to have like a Scherzer type of contract. Like, I'm going to say it's 2 years. I could see it like being like 2 for 66 with an opt-out after the first year. They're going to handsomely pay Verlander. Kansas City, they're a team that I think needs some veteran leadership. They traded away Andrew Benintendi last summer, and I think they're a team that wants to try to compete. And I think that a good veteran for them would be A.J. Pollock. So I'm going to say they signed A.J. Pollock. The Los Angeles Angels, I think, are the most interesting team of the offseason for a variety of different reasons. Their general manager, Perry Minasian, came out and said, no way we are trading Shohei Ohtani. Well, I don't buy that for shit. Not only do I think Shohei Ohtani is available, I think they are going to trade him. And the team that I think is going to acquire him is a team that I think absolutely needs him in one of the worst ways possible. He'll help them push this team over the top, and that is the New York Mets. Yes, the Mets will acquire Shohei Ohtani. And going back to LA in return, third base outfielder Brett Beatty, catcher Kevin Parada, shortstop Ronnie Mauricio, righty Eric Orze, and lefty Javier Atencio. That is a nice package for Ohtani. Mets don't have to give up Alvarez, but they give up the other catcher. They get Angels got 2 pitchers in return, and you could even argue that that's not enough for Ohtani. I saw some other offers for Ohtani, which I didn't think were strong enough from an Angels standpoint, but the other teams would do him in a heartbeat. But I absolutely think that the Mets should go out and get Ohtani, and he'd be excellent with Max Scherzer in that rotation in New York. The Los Angeles Dodgers, to me, are always thinking big money, big things. But they're also a team that sometimes likes to be loyal. And just like I predicted with Houston, I think LA will re-sign Clayton Kershaw. I just don't see him leaving the Dodgers. He's a Dodger for life. I think it's going to be, not as much as I think Houston will play Verlander, but I could see it being like a 2-year deal with an opt-out. Like, I could see it being 2 for 60 with an opt-out after the first year for Kershaw. So Kershaw back to the Dodgers. The Miami Marlins, I think they're a team that wants to trade for a star. There's a star on a contender right now that I don't think has the respect from his teammates and among his manager and his GM. This was somebody that didn't play this past year, and that is Fernando Tatis Jr. of the San Diego Padres. I'm going to say that he is quietly available, and the Marlins go out and acquire him from San Diego for righty Max Meyer, infielder Khalil Watson, catcher Joe Mack, and lefty Josh Simpson. Some might say that's not enough for Tatis, but guess what? Tatis hasn't played in a year, so we don't know what he's going to look like. So I think that the Padres would be intrigued by Meyer and Mack, who could be the catcher of the future. And then the infielder could provide depth. Maybe he could be like a second baseman down the road. And then Simpson could be a reliever for them down the road. And then right now, the Padres can put that kid Kim at shortstop, who's excellent defensively and really did a nice job stabilizing the position for them. So this is probably my most surprising prediction I'm going to make of the offseason. I think this is the surprise player traded. No doubt about it, Fernando Tatis Jr. The Milwaukee Brewers. They traded away Josh Hader. I think they're not trying to blow it up and rebuild. I think they're kind of want to remain competitive in that division. Somebody that I think could be available is some relievers from the Athletics, and one that I could see them trading is former first-round pick KJ Puke, who's had some injury issues in the past. So I can see Billy Beane shopping him. So I'm going to say Billy Beane trades away AJ Puke to Milwaukee. And going back to Oakland is lefty Robert Gasser, shortstop Daniel Galarte, and righty Cam Robinson. I think that's a good trade for Milwaukee, and then Oakland gets some assets for him. The Minnesota Twins are a team that tends to make a big name free agent signing every couple of years. It's kind of like the Diamondbacks in the National League, but I feel like the Twins do it more often than Zona. But a position that they haven't had success at is the catcher position. There's a player that's a free agent that's a catcher that I don't think is returning to his former team, and that is Wilson Contreras. So I'm going to say Wilson Contreras signs with the Twins, and I think the Twins massively overpay him. I could see it being like, I don't know, 6 for $140, some stupid number like that. So I'm going to say Wilson Contreras to the Twins. The New York Mets, I already made their big-time prediction with the Angels getting Ohtani. But there's a player that they really like that I know they want to re-sign. They re-signed Edwin Diaz, which, for what they gave up for at the time, although it doesn't look as good for Seattle as it did when they made that trade, the Mets felt like they had to bring back Edwin Diaz, who had the best season for a reliever in a long time. But there's another player that I know they want to re-sign, and that is Brandon Nimmo. So I'm going to say the Mets re-sign Brandon Nimmo. I'm going to say 5 for $120 or something like that. The New York Yankees. To me, they really have one big goal this offseason. This is something that I've said on the podcast 1,000 times over the last year. It doesn't matter who the GM is. This certain thing has to be done. Brian Cashman looks like he's back. It wasn't really reported that he is actually back as general manager, but it looks like he is just from the GM meetings, and the Yankees allowed him to go. So it looks like that he is back for the Yankees, but we don't know the terms. But whether it was Brian Cashman or another general manager, I think that re-signing the face of the franchise and the best player in baseball has to be done. I think Aaron Judge returns to the New York Yankees on I'm going to say 9 or 10 year deal. I'm going to say it's 9 for $320. I think his AAV is going to be very, very high. And I think his teammate Garrett Cole actually makes more than 320, which is sad. So, I could see it being like 9 for 340. Maybe 9 for 350. It's going to be somewhere in that range. Maybe 9 for 360 would be crazy. And that would get him to $40 million a year. I could see it being let's go with 9 for 3. 9 for 342. Then he's paid $38 million a year. So 9 times 38 would be 342. Let's go 9 for 342. And I can see there being an opt-out after 6 or something crazy like that. Aaron Judge back to the Yankees, 9 years, $342 million with an opt-out after 6. Maybe even an opt-out after 5. I could totally see there being an opt-out in the contract as well. So 9 for 342, I think, gets it done. And that is way more than the 8 for 213 that they offered him, which was bogus. They probably offered him that, looking at his past, injury pro, never performed the playoffs. And then people were saying, after his poor playoff performance, how, maybe the Yankees were right to offer him that bogus underpaid contract, which is stupid. He deserves to be the highest paid player in baseball. I don't think he's going to be, or maybe he will be. $38 million. Would he then he be the highest paid player in baseball if it's $38 million? What is Max Scherzer contract? He's 3 for 130. $43 million a year. So he won't be making as much as Max Scherzer, unfortunately. Maybe he'll be the highest paid position player in baseball. That would be nice. But the Mets were stupid, ridiculous to pay him that much money, even though he's been worth it for the most part, other than that playoff game. But yes, let's go 9 for 342. Aaron Judge back in pinstripes. The Oakland Athletics. To me, they're a team that's still rebuilding. A guy that had a good year for them is Cole Irvin. I think he gets traded, and I'm going to say the team that acquires him is the Baltimore Orioles. And I'm going to say, going back to Oakland, the deal is third baseman Cody Mayo, lefty Drew Rom, and righty Justin and Brewster. I think Irvin would be a great addition to the Orioles rotation. He's still pretty young. And the O's are a team that I think wants to continue to go for it after having a good year this year. The Phillies, it's obvious that they want a big-name shortstop. You heard Trey Turner wants to go there. But to me, the perfect guy for them is Xander Bogaerts. Obviously, Dave Dombrowski used to work for the Red Sox, and Dave obviously had Xander in Boston, so that's that connection there. So I'm going to say that the Phillies signed Xander Bogaerts to be their next shortstop. The Pittsburgh Pirates are continuing to rebuild. I predicted a Brian Reynolds trade earlier in the show. I'm going to say they trade their closer, David Bednar. I'm going to say he gets traded to the Yankees for righty Clayton Beeter, righty Brandon Beck, and righty Davy Garcia. The Yankees, Michael King, Tommy John, Chad Green, free agent, Aroldis Chapman, free agent, so they need reliever help. I can see them going out and getting yet another Pittsburgh reliever in David Bednar. The St. Louis Cardinals are a team that loves to make a big splash. They traded for Nolan Arenado. They traded for Paul Goldschmidt. And I think they're going to make another big splash. And this time I think it's going to be in free agency. I think they're going to sign Jacob deGrom away from the New York Mets. So that's another monster prediction for the show. This is a big free agent signing that might surprise some people. I think the Cards want to make that next step and get closer to the Dodgers and the Braves and the Mets and the Phils. And they take somebody off the Mets and sign him to their own team to help them, and he immediately becomes their number one starter. So I'm going to say Jacob deGrom to the Cardinals. And I'm going to say it's a handsomely paid 5-year contract, and I think he's going to get handsomely paid too. I think he gets potentially $40 million a year. But I'm going to say 5 for $190. deGrom to the Cards. The San Diego Padres, I already predicted a big trade for them with Tatis. A position for them that I think they could use an upgrade at his left field. And a player that could just run in the home runs day in and day out is Adam Duvall. So I'm going to say Adam Duvall to the Padres on a respectable contract, like maybe like a 3-year, maybe 3 for $60 or something like that. San Francisco Giants, you're going to be hearing them link to Aaron Judge all winter long, and you're going to be hearing some rumblings that Judge might want to go home to San Francisco. You know the Giants are going to try to go heaven and earth to sign Aaron Judge, but they're going to fail as Judge goes where he really should be, and that's the Bronx. And I'm going to say that they sign away Trey Turner from their rival Los Angeles Dodgers to an absolute monster contract similar to Corey Seager. So I'm going to go 12 for $340, Trey Turner to San Francisco. The Seattle Mariners want to get better. They want to close the gap with Houston in that division after making the playoffs for the first time in a long time. I think they need help on offense. And they're a team that I think likes to step their toe into the international guys that come over. And I can totally see them signing outfielder Masataka Yoshida. So I'm going to say that's where he lands with Seattle. And I could see it being like a really good contract, like 6 for $140 or something like that. The Tampa Bay Rays, we saw them trade away Jai-Man Choi about an hour ago to Pittsburgh. They need a first baseman. This would have been my prediction regardless of that trade. They need an upgrade at that position at the worst way possible. There's a free agent out there that was thrown into a trade, and I think wants to be in a little bit of a better ballpark for him in a better hitters division in the AL East. So I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Rays signed Josh Bell. So that's my big Rays prediction for them, that he goes to Tampa Bay. I could see that being like maybe a 4 for $84 or something like that. I think they're going to overpay him too. Texas. I can see them sniffing around for pitchers. The Rays, apparently, some of their pitchers are available. And a guy that hasn't pitched in a while, and someone that's been in trade rumors in the past, is Tyler Glasnow. So I'm going to say Tyler Glasnow gets traded to the Rangers for righty Owen Wright, righty Brock Porter, and shortstop Leiter Figueroa. The Rangers need help in their rotation. I'm not convinced that Martin Perez is going to repeat the year he had. So I can see them going out and getting Tyler Glasnow to lead that rotation. The Toronto Blue Jays, I think, are desperate to try to bounce back from what was honestly a very disappointing season. And the player that I think that they could acquire is a pitcher that hasn't pitched in a long time. Has always been hurt. I think a buy low situation. Steven Strasburg. Sorry, Toronto gets Steven Strasburg from the Nationals for righty Daheim Santos, righty Adrian Hernandez, and righty Alejandro Melon. Cheap price, 3-for-1 for Strasburg. But he would slide right into that rotation, but he doesn't even have to be the ace of that staff. He could be like the number 3 guy behind Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah. And the Nats, last but not least. I have them trading Strasburg, and I also have them trading away Patrick Corbin. And the team that I think acquires them is a team that's a young team that I think wants to get better, and that's the Kansas City Royals. And going back to Washington, I have lefty Drew Parrish and righty Chandler Champlain. I think that's a nice deal for all parties involved, and I like that deal for KC because they don't give up a lot, and Corbin in a bigger ballpark against weaker offenses in the AL Central, I think could do him wonders. All right, now I'm going to go through miscellaneous stuff. Just go through the rest of the free agents that we didn't touch on, and then we'll go team by team. All right, we talked about Contreras. I have him going to Mini. Mike Zunino has been on the Rays for a while. Maybe he goes back there. I don't know where Gary Sanchez goes. Maybe he goes to Tampa. That would be hilarious if he ended up somewhere in the AL East. Omar Narvaez, he was on the Brewers. Maybe he goes back there. Christian Vasquez, free agent. I could see Zunino going to Boston. I could see Gary Sanchez going to Boston, too. And there's a free agent I forgot about. We'll get to him in a little bit. Jose Abreu, I think, will go back to Chicago, and I think Rizzo will go back to the Yanks. I think Brandon Belt goes back to the Giants. Yuli Gurriel, I don't know, maybe back to Houston, because I think the champs usually bring teams back, and I think he goes back there. I think Gene Segura goes back to Philly. Adam Frazier's an interesting free agent. I can see him going to Boston. Or even Baltimore. I can see him going there. Let's say he goes to the O's. I think the O's are going to load up. And the O's can use a second baseman because they have Gunnar at short and they have Mountcastle at third. And right now their projected second baseman is Terrin Vavra. So yeah. Let's say Adam Frazier to Baltimore. That's a good one. Elvis Andrus is interesting. There's a couple teams in each shortstops. Maybe he goes to San Diego. Third base, we talked about some teams. And third base isn't really a need for a lot of teams. Justin Turner, I think, goes back to the Dodgers. Brandon Drury's an interesting free agent. Maybe KC. Maybe the Tigers. I mean, Jeimer Candelario really hasn't worked out for the Tigers. He's been somewhat of a bust. So I could see like Brandon Drury going there. Or even the KC. Joey Gallo, I could see him going to San Diego, but I picked Adam Duvall to go to San Diego. I could see him going to Seattle. I could see him going to Tampa. But there's a lot of teams I could see Gallo ending up on. Maybe he's on the... You know what? I could totally see him going to Houston. I could totally see him on the Astros because I really haven't predicted anything for Houston other than bringing back Justin Verlander. And they don't have a left fielder. So let's say Joey Gallo to Houston. That'd be just funny on all accounts. David Peralta, interesting free agent. I'm going to say the D-backs bring him back. I could see Jock Peterson going to the Yankees, so let's predict that. That would be an excellent signing for them. He'd be an upgrade over what they've had in left field from offense and defense. I could see him hitting home runs out of Yankee Stadium, too. That would be a perfect player for them. We predicted Brendan Nimmo back to the Mets. Kevin Kiermaier is interesting. He's not going back to Tampa. And he was a good Ray, too. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. And I think the Astros are going to keep McCormick because he's just been a really good player for them. Like, maybe... Ooh, that is so tough. Where would Kevin Kiermaier end up? The Cubs? Their center fielder right now. Yeah, let's go with the Cubs. Nelson Velasquez is slated to be their center fielder. So let's send Kevin Kiermaier to the Cubs. Mitch Haniger, I think, will go back to Seattle. Will Myers is not going back to the Padres, that's for sure. I think he wants to be on another team. I can see him going to Boston. I really can. As like a first base / right field option. And he put Alex Verdugo in left. Tommy Pham could DH. Or Verdugo can DH. So I can see him ending up there. I can also see him ending up on a couple of other teams as well. How about the Detroit Tigers? Would that be a good fit for Will Myers? Victor Reyes is slated to be there. So let's send him to the Tigers. JD Martinez is the free agent that we didn't discuss yet. That's a big name. He's 35 years old. He's somebody that's, I think, wants another big contract. I don't think he's going back to Boston. There's a lot of places I can see him ending up. And a team that I didn't predict a big free agent signing for is one of the best 3 teams in all baseball, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I think they're going to be doing a lot of maneuvering on that team. Like, I can see Gavin Lux being the shortstop, Max Muncy going the second, Chris Taylor can be the utility player for them, and left field in particular. So I'm going to say JD Martinez ends up on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Michael Brantley is another interesting free agent. I think he goes back to Houston. Matt Carpenter I can see going back to the Yanks because I feel like the Yanks kind of, people say that once Matt Carpenter broke his foot, that's when the Yankees season or their hopes of the throwing the Astros in the American League went down the toilet. Because he was the big left-handed bat that was unexpected for them and made a big difference. And he was a 0 in the playoffs. But he was rushed back from that injury. So I can see him on like a 1-year deal for like $13 million back to the Yankees. Trey Mancini is an interesting one. I think he's going to end up on a team that could use a DH, and a team that is up and coming. And another team that usually goes out and gets veterans like this, I really haven't talked about much today, and that's the Atlanta Braves. So I'm going to say they sign him. They sign Mancini to be like a DH. Stick him in left field. spot start for Matt Olson on occasion. So let's send him to Atlanta. Nelson Cruz, I could see going back to the Rays. Starting pitchers, I predicted Rodon to the Tigers, Kershaw back to LA, DeGrom, the St. Louis, Nate Eovaldi to the White Sox, Chris Bassett's a free agent. We didn't talk about him. He had a really solid year for the Mets and a team that needs some starting pitching because of a loss of a free agent is the San Francisco Giants. And I think he would be a big upgrade over Jacob Junis and like that 5 spot of the rotation. So I think Chris Bassett goes to San Francisco on a pretty good contract, like maybe 5 for $110 or something like that, which would be insane. Tyler Anderson's another free agent that we didn't discuss yet. He had a career year on the Dodgers, but I think they want to bring him back. So I'm going to say Tyler Anderson goes back to the Dodgers on a team-friendly contract, maybe like 4 for $82 or something like that. We already said Verlander back to Houston. Kyle Gibson, I don't think will go back to Philadelphia. I think he wants to go somewhere that could like rebuild his value. And somewhere that provides a big ballpark for him to pitch well. And a team that I think could use rotation depth is the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I'm going to say that he signs there. I can see that being like 4 for $70 to be in the back end of that rotation. Corey Kluber had some moments on the Rays. I could see him being a depth piece on Atlanta because they have some guys that are injured and guys that are trying to come back from injury. But they, I don't think they want to go in that direction. So I have no idea where he'll end. Let's say he goes back to Tampa Bay, 1-year deal. Martin Perez is actually a free agent. I didn't realize that he had a really good contract year. I know where he's going to end up, and I think the contract's going to be really, really bad. I'm going to say he ends up on Boston. Like 4 for $88 or something like that. Maybe even 4 for $96. Yikes. Sean Manaea, I think, wants to pitch in a bigger ballpark. I think he goes back to San Diego. Somewhere in that realm. 4 for $92, 4 for $96. Jose Quintana was really good for St. Louis, but I don't know if he wants to go back there. I have them signing DeGrom. So I could see Quintana going to another like weaker team and trying to get value. Like, we haven't picked much for the Rockies. So let's have him to the Colorado Rockies. Jameson Taillon's a free agent. The Yankees probably have the depth to replace him in a way. They have obviously Garrett Cole. They have Cortez. Frankie Montas is on that team. He was acquired. Hopefully he gets better because he got injured. I think he was pitching with an injury this past year. That's still no excuse. That trade looks terrible for the Yanks, but he could, in theory, bounce back. That would be their top 3 in that rotation. And then Luis Severino actually would be in the top 3, not Montas, actually. And then Taillon was their 5th starter. And there's some other guys that I know they like in that organization. I could see Taillon going to Tampa on a 1-year prove-it deal. That just makes so much sense. It's just funny because they robbed the Pirates in that Austin Meadows trade for Chris Archer. So I could totally see Tyon. Let's go Tyon to Tampa. Taijuan Walker. Oof, that's a good one. I think he ends up on the Twins in the back end of their rotation. And then the rest is like Wade Miley, Zach Eflin, Rich Hill, a lot of like mediocre-ish pitchers. Relievers, Edwin Diaz is back to the Mets, 5-year deal. Crazy contract with them. Craig Kimbrell's a free agent, so is Kenley Jansen. I think both of those guys want to be prove-it guys. I'm going to say Kimbrell goes to the Blue Jays and Kenley Jansen goes to Texas. Taylor Rogers, really good reliever. I could see him going to Arizona. Andrew Chaffin was on Zona. I'm going to say he goes to the White Sox. Michael Fulmer, I can see back to the Tigers. Chris Martin, back to the Braves. I could see Chad Green going back to the Yankees. Rafael Montero back to the Astros. He was brilliant for them. And then Jesse Chavez is the last guy that I think could have an impact. I think he could end up on the Phillies. Let's say Jesse Chavez to Philadelphia. All right. Surprise names that can be moved. AL East, maybe Devers. Nestor Cortez. I don't think Gleyber Torres would be a big surprise. Maybe Jose Trevino, if Cashman wants to sell high on Trevino and Nestor. Jose Barrios, if the Blue Jays realize they screwed up on that signing. Glasnow wouldn't be a big surprise. Shane McClanahan would be a monster surprise. I don't see him being moved. But the name has to be tossed because it's the Rays, and we've seen them trade elite pitchers in the past. Also, who am I missing in that division? Oh, the O's. I don't think if they trade anybody, maybe Cedric Mullins, and realize that. I mean, he was good this past season, but the season before might have been his peak season. I don't see any surprise names from the Royals or the Tigers being moved. Or even the Twins for that matter. The Guardians are not going to trade Shane Bieber. I think they're going for it. And Jose Ramirez is going to be there for the long haul. And then the last team in that division is the White Sox, who I think are kind of just whatever. I don't see them making any big trades. Mike Trout could be a surprise trade candidate, but I didn't have the balls, obviously, to pick that. And I had the balls to pick Ohtani to get traded. Maybe Anthony Rendon. Would that be a surprise? Maybe. Texas, Martin Perez, I didn't realize was a free agent. But I really don't see them trading anybody on their roster. I think they're going to try to win now. I don't think the Astros are going to trade anybody. Same for Seattle. Oakland, I think that's just a for sale sign on every player's back on that team. I predicted Cole Irvin to be traded. I don't think they'll actually trade guys like James Kaprielian and JP Sears. I think they want to build around those guys and build around the prospects they got for the Matt Olson trade and the Matt Chapman trade. So the guys I predicted to get moved, I think, are probably going to get moved. The Mets, I don't see them trading anybody away. Same for the Phils, other than Bryson Stott, who was benched in the World Series. The Braves aren't trading anybody of significance, I don't think. The Nats are going to have for sale signs on every player's backs, too. And the Marlins, I think, are going for it. Maybe Jazz Chisholm's in a trade to upgrade a position, but I even don't see them moving Jazz Chisholm. I predicted Max Meyer to go in a surprising Fernando Tatis deal. We'll get to the NL West in the second. AL Central, Cardinals, I predicted a big DeGrom signing for them. Obviously, Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols retires. Adam Wainwright, I believe, has a year left on his deal and is the last one of that old core to still be around. Yeah, he is the only one left. But maybe he announces his retirement. We'll see. But would they trade somebody like Paul DeJong, who's been bad for a while now? Cubs, I don't know what happened to Kyle Hendricks. He wasn't listed on their roster, which is very weird. And he's not listed on the free agent list either, which is another weird thing. Maybe he is a free agent, but they just forgot to include him. I think they lose Contreras. Maybe they sign one of those catchers. Maybe they trade for like Jose Trevino if the Yankees want to sell high on him. Maybe they sign Christian Vasquez or Gary Sanchez or somebody like that. I can see Vasquez going there. Christian Vasquez. Reds are going to try to their butts off to trade Mike Moustakas, that's for sure. Milwaukee, they're not trading Corbin Burns. I think they're going to try to remain competitive, like I said earlier. Rockies, they're a team that's typically quiet. They signed Chris Bryant. That looks like a terrible signing right now. I have them trading German Marquez to Philly for Bryson Stott plus other stuff. Maybe they trade Kyle Freeland. We'll see. Maybe they trade Bryant and admit defeat on that. Who knows? Dodgers, I have re-signing Kershaw. I have them bringing in J.D. Martinez to help replace Trey Turner's offense. And I have them bringing back Tyler Anderson as well. They also need relievers. I can see them signing somebody like David Robertson or Adam Ottavino, maybe Garrett Richards, somebody in that realm. David Phelps would be a good fit. Let's pick David Phelps to the Dodgers. That'd just be a good fit. Giants are going to try their butts off for Judge, but won't get him. I have Trey Turner going there instead. I have Brandon Belt going back there. And I picked a free agent pitcher to go there. Who was it? Chris Bassett. I could totally see Chris Bassett ending up in San Francisco. Diamondbacks, I have them making big moves, signing Carlos Correa. I have them bringing back David Peralta. I have them making a move for Kyle Gibson. So I think they're going to be very active. The Padres, I have them trading Tatis, amazingly enough. Have them signing Adam Duvall. I could see some other stuff with the Pods going out and getting some relievers maybe. And then that's it. That's pretty much everybody. All right, so this was a fun podcast to do. I'll look back at this come April and see how I did. Hope you guys enjoyed the offseason, everybody.